Jess. Thank you for joining me.
Hello.
How are you?
Thanks for having me on.
No worries. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Yeah, plodding on. How are you?
I'm doing well. Yeah, lockdowns got, had its ups and downs, let's say. But
It's been crazy.
Yeah, it certainly has. Let's jump right into who are you and what do you do?
My name is Jess Smith and I am a vocal artist, a performer, and a number of different other things as well. I like to teach, I like to spend my time with the community. I'm like an all-rounder, basically. But my passion comes from the arts.
Amazing. So tell me more about your experience with mental health.
Mental health has been like a tricky one for me, really. Because it's took some understanding to understand what mental health is, because obviously as you're growing up you always think mental health is always like a bad thing. You always think mental health is automatically bad, but when I started to understand that mental health was both good and bad, it's how you look after that mental health. It's just as important as your physical health. So yeah, I've had a lot of, to explain my mental health really is really explaining my journey and what I've been on, the type of journey I've been on. Growing up, I was really always like, as a happy child that I can remember. My mum and dad weren't in a happy relationship, so I always seen that growing up, but they were both equally rocks around me growing up. But obviously people who know me know my story, and I've never really spoken out about it to the world or really anybody really. There's very few close people that are close to me that do know my story. Growing up, really, I was a mummy's girl. I wasn't really like daddy's girl or anything like that. That was more my sister. And growing up, it was like me and her all the time, and I'd like sleep with her and stuff like that. Like we'd share a bed together and stuff like that. But then at 12 years old, my mum and dad had recently decided to split, which obviously was heartbreaking on both me and my sister, where we kind of didn't really understand it because we knew that they didn't have that close relationship, but it actually happened now. They'd actually split. So that was a confusing time as well for me, and at such a young age I was like, how do I deal with this sort of emotion? And then at 12 years old, my mum decided that she was going to leave me and my sister without any notice, just got on a plane and left us. The only thing we got was a text message to say that she had gone, which was a hard time for me and my sister. But my sister was more accepting of what had happened at that moment. Yeah. Whereas me, I had kind of, I went into a bit of denial, as if it it hadn't actually happened. Yeah. As if like what had happened to me hadn't happened. And for years, like absolutely years, I kind of like blocked it out. But what I didn't see was it was building up and bottling up and causing frustration and causing me to have these outbursts, these awful outbursts of anger on the people around me. Yeah. Not because of a source of blame, but because of a source of misunderstanding of the situation. And growing up, I never felt like I would be the person that would have to deal with these type of emotions, would have to deal with these type of mental health issues. So I was kind of in denial that anything was even wrong with me as well. And yeah, I was always having these outbursts of anger all the time, crying a lot of the time, but always crying to myself. I never like really try to cry in front of people. It's only until like, you see, I do a dance that means a lot to me, or you catch me on a bad day, that really I'll ever be anything like that. But yeah, I would just have like awful outbursts of anger, and I took it out on the people around me. I'd get into arguments. I was constantly arguing with my dad. And what I'd seen growing up was them two arguing. So probably I kind of fell into that, which was wrong of me, because I obviously had a misunderstanding. And what I didn't understand was I had seen my mum and dad do that, but now my sister was watching me do that with my dad.
Yeah.
And that's one of my biggest regrets, because I didn't understand at the time that I was the closest thing to her, to a role model. I was the closest thing that she had to look up to and to inspire and to be as a person. And I was showing the complete wrong person to her. I was showing this angry person. And I was being in denial for a couple of years. So now it's been about 7 years since, how old am I? 19. Yeah, it's about 7 years since my mum did leave. And for like 5 years, I would say I was in complete in denial, as if like, not as if anything had happened and knew it happened, but I was in denial of the emotions that I felt.
Yeah.
I kind of put a barrier up and was kind of like, no, you don't feel that way. People like you don't feel that way. Do you know what I mean? Like, you don't feel that way. That doesn't happen to you. Whereas I had to sit back and go, no, you have to grieve about this. And it wasn't until I left high school, because in high school I had many problems with many people, because of the way I acted and because of the way they acted as well. Obviously, we were just kids, and at the time I wasn't going through a normal kid situation.
Yeah.
I didn't have that mother to go home to. I didn't have that mother that I would go home and she'd have teacups, nothing like that. So I didn't have an understanding of what they went home to. So my anger that was building up, my frustration, I didn't understand why they couldn't understand that. And that was wrong of me. But it wasn't until I left high school and started to figure out myself a bit more that I started to come intact with these emotions, of how I truly did feel about the situation, and start to think that it's actually happened. She's actually gone. And there's a few reasons as to why I probably felt that way, which I do understand now. I feel like I went on a journey of understanding that happened to me, and understanding that I am allowed to grieve.
Yeah.
There's a lot of grieving that did go on and has gone in the past few years, where I've had to sit down with people and really just speak the words out loud, because I'd never really done that before. I'd never really spoken the words out loud of what had happened, even what had happened or how I felt. People just kind of knew, because they just knew that had happened to me, but I'd never actually spoken to anybody. And it wasn't until really that I'd got really close with the people in MD. They have sort of an energy there where it's always solution focused and it's positive, and no matter how you're feeling on the day, you can always find a positive in that place. And it wasn't until they started to see that this mask and this barrier that I had up wasn't who I was. It was just hiding emotions that I truly felt. And they helped me kind of understand them emotions, understand what had happened to me by talking to me, letting me just talk. And in that sort of way, I kind of understood the emotions and why I felt like that, and why what I had witnessed growing up and what I had experienced was the reason for why I was having these outbursts of anger, because I never knew why. I always just felt this anger constantly inside me, like raging in my chest. And that's where I feel most of my emotions. Anybody who knows me and has seen me dance when I'm doing an emotional piece, I always hit my chest, and that's where I feel most of my emotion. I always used to just feel it like burning and burning, and I kind of had to get to a place where I understood where that anger had come from. But once I'd understood that, I felt this like gorgeous aura of energy like come from me, where it was kind of a release. It's as if I feel what has happened to me. I have had, it's got like its own little story, and I'm going through chapter and chapter and chapter, and each journey along the way is called something. And I feel like I went through my first stage, which was a stage of acceptance. Maybe the second stage, because first stage was denial. But I started to work with the emotions of how I felt and really sit with them and realize that it's okay to feel them emotions. What happened to you was not a nice thing. It was a traumatic thing that happened to you, and to really hear them emotions come out of you, like literally hear them words come out of you. It took me on that journey of acceptance and helped me to grow as a person. And now, obviously in the first few years that my mum left me, she barely spoke to me. And I had to get into contact with her. I had to find her, and then she's been on and off. And when I turned 18 was when she literally completely cut me off altogether, and I had to go through a process of then understanding. And now I feel like it's at a separate stage, because finally my mum and dad have got a divorce. This whole time they haven't been divorced, and it's been incredibly difficult for my dad, but they finally got a divorce. But I feel like I'm going through another journey. But what I'm so grateful of the journey that I've gone on is how appreciative I've become of the people around me. All the time I used to just, because that had happened to me and someone had left me that easily, I'd never been truly grateful for who was around me, and the energy I could give them, the energy they could give me. And it really made me appreciate my dad and what he had done for me, which I probably did anyway, but because I had this barrier up, I never understood that emotion of gratitude. And he's literally been my rock the whole way through this, because I have done some awful things, said some awful things, caused some awful situations, and that was a process that me and my dad had to go through, where he understood that I was feeling them emotions and I was going through something, but couldn't quite speak the words out and couldn't quite register it in my head, so I didn't know how I could register it to other people. And it was understanding of me, of how I made him feel and what I put him through. And it's beautiful really when you have that understanding between two people. And now me and my dad are as close as ever. I'm like 100% daddy's girl now. Like, he is my complete rock, and he's had, as I say, he's stood by me in some awful situations. And some parents won't. Some parents really, they won't, and he has, because he's seen that whatever that barrier was, it wasn't truly me. And I genuinely feel like a better person now that I've spoke these emotions out. And obviously what's happened to me, there's still emotions there, and I feel like I'm going on another journey now. Whereas my mum's as I've said, my mum and dad have got divorced, and they've got back in contact, and it's not been good contact, and she's not said some good things, which have upset me and both my sister. And I just feel like I'm going on a different journey now, to where I should feel I need to register my own worth in myself and not have to hear it from other people. And it's impacted me in a lot of situations, especially in my industry, in the industry that I'm in. You have to learn to fight. You have to learn to swim. You're going to hear some awful things along the way, which I have. And it's having to hear them things, but still know in yourself that just because somebody's told you them things doesn't mean that's what you are. It's understanding they are they have their own process, but you and yourself, you have to know your worth, and you have to have that ground and that base of don't let yourself fall. And I feel like now I'm going through another journey where it's finding my own worth. I want to find my own worth, then I'll obviously be opening up another journey. And I feel like this first journey of understanding has helped me to become wiser, and understand that I'm going to go through these journeys in life. It happens to everybody. Everybody goes through these journeys. It's how you get through them. And it takes time. Things that are worthy and things that are meaningful take time. And that's the kind of process that I'm going on right now.
Yeah. So at your worst time, you know, deep down knowing that you're going through something that, you know, there's not really much you can change, how did you kind of get through that?
I feel like in the first 2 years of when this happened to me, because this is the only real thing that's impacted my mental health massively. In the first 2 years of what had happened, I remember, which is absolutely heartbreaking, no child should ever have to go through this. As I said, me and my mum growing up, I was a mummy's girl, and she'd always sleep in the same bed with me because I got scared. I was terrified of the dark, still am.
Yeah.
And every night, because she worked in a restaurant, she owned her own restaurant, every night I would look out my back window and wait for her car to come down the street, and I'd wait and listen for her to come through them doors. And I feel like in them first 2 years, it was kind of, I was still waiting for that to happen, as if it was going to happen, as if I was expecting my mum to come down the drive, I was expecting her to walk through them doors. There was many of times where I stood at the top of my stairs waiting for her to come home. And when I got to that point of it's not going to happen, it was very, very hard to drag myself out of it. And it was a lot of sleepless nights, tired days, bad days, really bad days. But I feel like a lot of it is to do with the people you surround yourself with.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I feel like once I got to that place of where I realised who I was surrounding with myself with was not healthy for myself. I was choosing a big group of friends over quality. So I was choosing quantity over quality.
Yeah.
Is that the right way? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was choosing quantity over quality, and I needed to understand that's not the right thing to do. You need to find people who have the right energy around you. And obviously, when I went to MD, they brought me in, and it was like a place I should have always been. It was as if, Zoe always tells me, she said, it's as if you've always been here, because you just come in and you just fit right in. Once I started to surround myself with them right people, it really did help me to get out of that place and not just think all the time that's what you have to think about all the time. It made me realize there's other things to the world than thinking these emotions all the time, and letting this situation be the better of you. And once I had that energy around me, that caring, positive energy around me, the understanding energy around me, it helped me then as myself, as an individual, to mature and realize that the change really does start with you.
Yeah.
But you have support around you. And that's when I started to realize that my dad wasn't actually being this dad which I thought he was, tell me to do things all the time. He was supportive, and he's been an amazing person, and as well as the rest of my family, which have helped him raise me. But yeah, once I started to surround myself with the right people, and it really is the best decision to do. And not everybody always finds the right people straight away. And obviously it's not the answer for everyone. I'm just talking through my own experiences. Once I found the right people around me, it helped me understand like what I was going through, understand my own emotions, and it helped me understand that because they were so solution focused and inspired by the people that Miguel was showing me to, the artists he was showing me to, what he had done. It showed me that life isn't just about what happens to you, it's what you do about it. Yeah. And it was that sort of mindset which I got into then, which helped me get out of these situations where I realised you can do like whatever you want, as long as you put your mind to it. And that's kind of what I do now. Everybody who knows me knows I'm a workaholic, so yeah.
What advice would you give to others?
So obviously from my own experiences, I've never been diagnosed with anything like that. I've never gone and spoke to any sort of doctor. I'm not saying that I never will, but I'm just saying in my experiences and how I've overcome situations, I've never spoken to any doctor. The advice I would give from my own experiences was sometimes I didn't know how to speak. I'd get so angry and frustrated that it just come out as anger and this like mentally abusive behaviour, and I wouldn't kind of get what I was trying to say across. So when I realised that I only understood really in them bad times how I was feeling and how I was feeling about that situation, once I realised that was the times, I thought not to waste it. Instead of sitting there and crying the emotions with it all jumbled up in my head, I decided to write them. I decided to get my phone out and type it down, or get a piece of paper. I still have a journal which still has them same very notes in from when I was feeling a certain way, and I used to just write what was ever going in my head, whether it didn't make sense or anything like that, just keep on going. And once I had written that out and got to the very depth of it, it's when I started to calm and the crying would kind of stop. And it was because I was getting it out, even though I wasn't speaking it, even though I wasn't saying it to anybody else, I was still getting it out in some way. So then when I was ready to tell people how I was truly feeling, I didn't have to do it right there on the spot, because obviously people know your darkest times come when you're alone. People know that. So my advice to anybody is, even if you feel like you can't talk to somebody, or you feel like you never know what to say, when you are feeling them darkest times, don't waste them, write it down, because then when you are ready to talk to people, you have it there. You have it there to say, this is how I felt in the past. And even if writing isn't your best way of expressing it, dance it, draw it, squiggle it, just express that emotion in any solution-focused way possible. And when then people are around you and they're saying that you can talk to them, because they really are there for you. People who say they're there for you and aren't there for you, use it to your own benefit. Use it so that you get them emotions out. Don't think, oh, I've told them people this emotions and they've not done anything about it. Everybody has their own struggles. Everybody has their own journeys. And I felt, me as myself, I was very selfish, and I was thinking, yours can't be as bad as what I'm going through. But then I realised people experience pain in different ways.
Yeah.
People's strength of pain is very different. And once I understood that, even though I was talking to these people and they wasn't really helping me or doing anything about it, they was really helping me, because I was able to speak these emotions. I was able to get it out in some way. Just getting them emotions out there and not letting them build up in your head. My advice is the best thing to do, because once I'd written them emotions down and got them out and expressed them and told them, showed them to the people closest to me, they kind of understood me a little bit more and understood what I was feeling at them times. And even though I wasn't expressing it at them that time where I was ready to tell them, they knew how I had been feeling at them times. So get it written down, express it in a healthy way, And when then people are around just saying that they want to talk to you, they want to help you, and that they're there for you, they truly are. Because there's been people around me, and the things that they've said to you, said to me, for example, I remember I went through a time where I'd faced rejection, which wasn't good for me, because obviously, as I said, I was going through this journey of not feeling good enough. Facing rejection was incredibly difficult for me, because I was like, how do I deal with this emotion? Because I only ever register what the other people say to me, and never really truly sit in my own worth.
Yeah.
And I remember Miguel said to me once, Jess, I wish you'd just start believing in yourself. And it kind of clicked in my head, and I was like, whoa. And this was literally only a couple of months ago. And I was literally like, whoa, like, you're right. Like, I can't preach to people all the time, like, believe in yourself, stay positive, and all these sort of things that I do to all the people around me, as you know, but then in myself not feel that worth. And so now I'm kind of going on my own journey, and the understanding and the beauty of it's amazing. But that's because in the past I've written things down and I've expressed them right there. Miguel's seen me dance, he's seen me express that emotion.
Yeah.
My absolutely amazing boyfriend, I've written things down, and I've shown them to him when I've not been, like, in times where I feel like I can't speak, but showing him this letter or this writing. The same with my dad. It's helped them to understand them emotions that I'm feeling. So yeah. What I did was write things down and expressed it in a healthy way, so that it wasn't all bottled up.
Yeah. Well, I greatly appreciate you coming on and, sharing your story regarding mental health. Because we all have a story, and we all need to, share it at our own pace. So I do greatly appreciate you coming on today. So thank you for that, and I hope to see you soon.
Oh, me too. Miss you loads.
Bye.
Bye.
But we don't talk anymore.